Futures trading involves a substantial risk of loss and may not be suitable for all investors. Therefore, carefully consider whether such trading is suitable for you in light of your financial condition. Good morning. It's Tuesday, April 28th. I'm Phil Streible, Chief Market Strategist at Blue Line Futures. So some housekeeping again. If you're working with us, please roll over your May metals to July for silver and then also copper here today. Now, check it on the markets overnight. Some of your top headlines here because the metals complex, it is extending Monday's sell-off here as a hawkish tilt from the Bank of Japan, a firmer dollar, a fragile U.S.-Iran talks here had pushed oil and inflation expectations higher here, leading to a flush in the long positioning here ahead of Wednesday's FOMC meeting. So overnight here, you look at June gold, 46.24. Low of the overnight session, 46.17. High of the overnight session, 47.16. So quite a wide range here. And then you look at July silver falling below that 74 handle here, testing 73.03. That's with the May contract getting down to 72.51. So quite a bit of selling here in this overnight trading session. You got July copper breaking $6 for the first time here since early April and trading as low as $596.95. So that's the July contract as well and is the front month. So look at the Bank of Japan. That was really the catalyst here at the start of the overnight session. Their decision to hold the policy rate at 0.75% with a hawkish tilt of 6-3 split here. Three members, they dissented in favor of an immediate hike up to 1% alongside an upward revision to the core inflation forecast to 2.8% from 1.9, really added that fresh layer of complexity. So you look at the Japanese yen here, sitting slightly lower on the overnight session, but it's really the dollar index at 98.57, up 25 ticks here with just a sea of red again in the FX market. So if you're curious about what's going on in the gold market, it's that stronger dollar, it's the 10-year treasury yields pushing up, it's the hawkish tilt, and then it's also the long positioning, the excessively long positioning coming into what we have for the rest of the week is kind of an action-packed week here with the Fed meeting taking place here tomorrow. So the Fed's on deck here. You got incoming Chair Warsh, and the path of least resistance for the meeting is clearly defensive for the metals here, even with that structural backdrop of central bank buying, the electrification driving that copper market with the big deficit. It's really put some pressure on these markets. You look at the June crude oil market capturing that $100 handle again and really revisiting that higher level, sitting at 99.78, up $3.41. So a big move in the overnight session again in that oil market. Now you go over to the four things we really want to watch here for the rest of the week. It's going to be the earnings. It's going to be the tone coming out of Chairman Powell. It's going to be core PCE and then any Straits of Hormuz headlines. And with no formal announcement and Tehran still publicly refusing to negotiate under the blockade is really giving little progress here. You look at equity futures. You got the Dow Jones up about 122, the S&P 500 down 17.75, the NASDAQ down 187. And really it's the futures are slipping after, stocks, they did close at those record highs, but the market's hottest theme really took a knock here from a report that OpenAI failed to meet the internal targets, putting traders on edge ahead of these big earnings announcements coming out of the hyperscalers. So the S&P 500, for me, that key level on the weekly support is going to be right around 71.40. Now, the other markets that are on my radar, because there's been a lot of other markets that have been performing quite well, in my opinion. You've got corn futures extending the breakout right now on the highs of the overnight session, 473.25, up 4 cents. You also have wheat futures up at 642, about a penny off its high here, up 12 cents. You have the Kansas City wheat up 17.75. That's pushing up as well. And you got bean oil up 17 ticks also. So soybean oil forming that bullish pennant near the contract highs. You've got wheat smashing through the previous resistance. You have Bitcoin futures consolidating between 75 and 80,000. That's on that May contract. You got copper consolidating between that $6 range and up to $6.20 on the July contract. And you got sugar futures. They're up again here at 14.26 for July, rising 6 out of 7 previous trading sessions. The line in the sand for the sugar market's going to be about 13.22, and you really want to see that push over 14.50 to extend that market higher. Now you check it on the metals here. Really, again, the three things that are driving the sell-off: the Bank of Japan's hold, the situation in Iran with the higher for longer, and the positioning remaining elevated coming into the Fed. I've said that a few times, but I get a lot of people that ask me, what's driving these markets here. So June gold, 46.21 here last, down about $72, about down $125, which matches about the 20-day average true range here. So looking at a combined session, making about that move. Low of the overnight session, 46.17. High of the overnight session, 47.16. So the support getting down to that lower end here, it was really a pocket support. Now we're at the low end, 46.20. The resistance is going to be up near psychological 4,700. To recapture that, it'd be 47.50 onto 4,800. 4,800 is very, very tough resistance for June gold to get through at the moment here. Now you look at the ETF flows, they cut 124,000 troy ounces of gold, and total gold held by ETFs here down about 1/10 of a basis point. You look at July silver on the session here, down about $1.88 at 73.69 for July. The high of the overnight session was 76.71, the low 73.03. You do have June gold making a low as of this recording here. Now you look at silver taking the brunt of the overnight selling pressure. The resistance, 50-day moving average near there at 79.28. A close, you'd need it over 81.49 in order to set the stage for another breakout, but trading really near these support levels here, 73.50 and 73.03 as light support. So the silver ETFs, they did rise about 101,000 ounces here. Year to date, still down about 8%. The gold silver ratio at 63-1. So today we will have some economic data here. ADP change here, consumer confidence as well. You go to Europe and Asia here, European stocks, they swung between gains and losses. Asian stocks, they traded to lower here, but still holding near those February peak with the MSCI Asia Pacific Index tacking down. It was selling off about 0.4%, really dragged down by the information technology firms. And on the earnings front, out of the 150 S&P 500 companies that have reported so far, 80% have beaten, 13% have missed. 10-year treasury yields sitting at 4.349% now, and that's when that gold market just made a new low. So if you're watching the gold market, you're watching silver, again, the dollar, you want to have 10-year treasury yields, you want to have the VIX all up on your screen here because you can really gauge in crude oil some of those inflation expectations. Now you look at the CME's Fed Watch Tool, odds are calling for a 100% chance that they leave rates unchanged at 3.5 to 3 3/4. Again, the dollar 98.59, the euro currency 117.18, VIX futures 2010 and cash VIX futures sitting at 18.39, and the S&P 500 gamma exposure remains positive. So we'll see what happens with this gold market, with it selling off in silver. I anticipate that we'll see a lot more people actually stepping in to the dip on this market here as they start to nibble for portfolio diversifiers when we get past this conflict here, and if we could start to see some progress being made and we start to see some of these inflation expectations coming down, really fueled by that higher crude oil prices. You do have Brent crude up $3 at 111.24 for the June contract, so keep an eye on that as well. So if you guys got any questions, reach out, info@bluelinefutures.com. Remember, futures and option trading does involve risk of loss, may not be suitable to all investors. Good luck, good trading.
Futures trading involves a substantial risk of loss and may not be suitable for all investors. Therefore, carefully consider whether such trading is suitable for you in light of your financial condition.